Hey, before we start the episode, this is just a reminder this episode does take place before we had changed to a strictly interview format, and as such, there may be references to the other episodes we used to do that don't have anything to do with that. You can disregard that and just enjoy the episode.
The Graphic Histories Podcast.
Hey, it's that time again. Time for the Graphic Histories Podcast. My name is André, and I'm your host for the show. Great to be here. Try my official voice. Didn't quite come off the way I wanted to. Yes, welcome to the show. Big thanks to Ukla the Mock for our theme song, Superpowers. And just wanted to thank each and every one of you for tuning in once again. It is a pleasure to be here. This is episode number 39. Another one of our featured interview segments. This time we'll be talking to Gisèle Lagacé, who is a independent comic writer and artist, does some amazing work, but I won't tell you too much about it, as I'm sure you must know of her, some of her work, and if you don't, then you will certainly learn about it during this episode. But if you haven't read anything by her, I'd highly suggest it. She has some really, really great books out there, really fun, interesting stuff that I really enjoy, and I think you will too. So I hope you enjoy that. As far as things going on in the whole wide world, today has been the inauguration of the next president of the United States. As a Canadian, I always feel a little distant from American politics. And perhaps that's self-created because I know there's a lot of discourse over there. There's a lot of argument. I mean, there's been a lot of big issues going on in the last little while around Trump and the election, and I try to remind myself that I am not an American, and some of the opinions I have are irrelevant because that is, their realm, and it's the only way you can kind of stay sane with some of the insanity that's happened over there, and not getting too upset or too frustrated or too worried about the way the world's going to go, because all I can do is sort of live in the little bubble I have here with my little group of friends and my little life, which I like. And try not to get too deep into that stuff. I am, politically, literate in the way that I do follow the news. I just try to taper my outrage sometimes in reminding myself that I'm not an American. So, what happens there, if I disagree with it, there's not much I can do about it. But just hope that the people that live there will vote, and, reason will pardon the pun, trump insanity, and that the people that should be in charge, or at least the people that are best prepared to do so, or make changes, or to repair some of the problems with that country, will be able to do so. And I feel as though that has come. I don't think Biden was the perfect candidate. I don't know who would have been, but I am happy to see that the pendulum has swung back to the left, and that perhaps it may involve some changes. So. As Gisèle and I talk about in the episode, some stuff about the political world and the spectrum, and how, we're both aware of it, but we're not super involved in it. It is nice to see that, there's been a transition of power that was peaceful, and that hopefully that country can heal. And if you're an American listener, I hope you are feeling, I'm trying to think of a better word than hopeful, because I just used it, but I hope that you are feeling better. I hope that your outlook on the future of your country and your situation is better. And I hope everybody listening is doing well and happy about the news. And that's enough about that. WandaVision debuted last Friday, and I know new episodes come out every Friday. I did happen to watch the first 2 episodes. And there's been a lot of division online regarding people's opinions of the show. Whether it's they didn't like it because it's not your standard Marvel fare, and in a lot of action and intrigue and thrills. That's kind of a quieter story, although it does seem to be a slow burn in that they are leading somewhere. basically through the lens of 1950s style sitcoms. The family sort of sitcoms, the I Dream of Jeannies, I Love Lucy's, Dick Van Dyke Show, those sort of things. And yeah, I don't want to give any spoilers away, and I won't. However, there are elements in the episode. It's apparent. I mean, I'm sure you could have told that from the advertisements that they're living in some kind of world. Where it came from or how they got there, I don't know, and that is yet to be revealed. However, there seem to be moments where the real world kind of bleeds in to whatever reality they're living in, and they're very good. There's one particular one in the first episode and one big one in the second episode that really show there's like something, I don't know, it gives you a good feeling of not just like intrigue in the way that you want to know what's happening, but almost dread, like something real dark is going on, and the facade slips a little. I don't know. The feeling it gave me was something of real interest to me, and I'm really excited to see where they're going to go with it. So anyway, that's enough of the comic world. I should jump right into today's episode, and that will be Gisèle Lagacé, and I hope you enjoy.
All right.
Hey, you are.
Sorry if I'm not looking directly at you, but
that's quite all right. Seriously, I can.
I can. If I look over there, I have to kind of look.
No. That's totally fine. Totally fine.
It's just because I work from a laptop, but my drawing screen is connected to it. Mm-hmm. So I have to disconnect this to be able to look at the.
Yeah, don't worry about that. That's fine. Totally fine.
Okay.
I can see.
Right.
I can.
Okay.
All good.
I'll try and look at you. I'll look at you over there once in a while,
Just for emphasis, like when you really need to hammer home a point, maybe.
Yeah, because otherwise I have to, like right now I'm looking directly at you.
But... Yeah, no, that's totally fine. Seriously,
okay.
just keep it at that. That's totally cool. What kind of setup you got there for art? Like you said, you had a different sort of drawing screen set up?
Well, it's sort of like a those Cintiq knockoff, Mm-hmm. It's like I didn't go when I bought this. I was, because I had been working for years on those little Wacom tablets, mm-hmm. Tiny little things. So I was a graphic designer previously, so I was just used to working on those things, mm-hmm. And I could actually draw pretty well with that. But I saw everybody going to those Cintiqs, but I was so afraid that I was going to spend like $3,000, and I wouldn't enjoy the experience, and I would go back to my little cheap tablet. I said, okay, I'll just buy like a cheap knockoff, and then if it works out, well, it was cheap, so who cares, And so that's what I ended up doing. I didn't pay a lot of money for this. It's just like a 22 inch roughly, and I can draw on it. I paid under $1,000 for it. And I just connected it to my laptop, and it's been on for like 3 years now, I think. So I don't think I'll go back. But now I know that I don't need to buy anything expensive to satisfy myself.
Yeah, I think that's an important lesson for a lot of people that are getting into design of any kind. Is that there's some really great stuff out there that you don't need to kill yourself, money wise, to get, for sure.
No, like all the software that I use is all the very, very affordable. Mm-hmm. The only thing that I've spent money on was maybe the computer itself, the laptop. Mm-hmm. But it's considered like a gaming laptop.
Yep.
It's still not like an expensive gaming laptop. It's just mm-hmm. like it's something that I can play games on it if I want to. But it's pretty rare that I do. I have a console for that. So
see, where do you find the time?
Yeah, exactly. I play games like maybe once a week, So,
I wish I could condense it down to that low. Like I never used to play games at all. And then I kind of became friends with a guy that played all the time. So I thought, he had an old system, and he owed me some money. So I ended up buying one from him just to kind of square things up. And man, with quarantine, it was just like we did so much of it. Now, like we have a group that plays like 2 or 3 hours every night. So it's
well, that's good. With like you said, like with the quarantine, same for me and Mark. Mark, you've met Mark, my partner.
Yes.
We, before we were doing conventions during the weekend. So, and now there's no convention. So during the weekend, we're trying to look at stuff to do, and it's like you can't even go to the cinema that much. You can't do much. So
they're closed in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, well, they closed too, but mostly because there's not a lot of things showing, and I guess people, but there's also some regions in New Brunswick that are going on the red zone. So
I saw that. You're not in one of them, right? You're
no, I'm not in one, but might be in one like in a week. Who knows?
well,
But
Moncton is now. And what part of
yeah,
New Brunswick are you in?
I'm a Bathurst Miramichi around
Right.
there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So
My mother-in-law is from the Bathurst area.
yeah. So anyway, so we're pretty good here. There's not many cases, but
That's
still,
good.
uh,
Yeah, we've been keeping it pretty low in Nova Scotia. I think.
yeah, you're doing better than us.
Yeah,
So
we've been doing really well. There's still the occasional that pop up here and there, but it's mainly due to travel. Like almost everyone is travel.
yeah, same for us. I
Yeah.
mean, the summer was great when you think about it.
Yeah.
We spent weeks without any cases. We had that Atlantic bubble going,
I
and
know that was wonderful because
yeah,
my wife and I were supposed to go to we were talking about going to the Star Wars Disney World. We're going to do that in the fall and do the Halloween Horror Nights at Orlando.
mhm.
So we ended up doing that, and at least in the summer we got to have a bit of a vacation by traveling like PEI, and I did some day trips to New Brunswick and visit friends like in different areas. So it was nice to get around and do some stuff. At least you could do that for the most part.
Yeah, I think I mean, if all goes well, we'll get back to it like maybe in 2 months,
Yeah,
maybe.
summer again.
Yeah, summer again, and
Well, at least
back.
summer's a good time to have it. I mean, winter's not a lot going on, so I do miss the movie theater a lot. I'm a big movie guy, so
Yeah,
I have been missing that. Although I do have quite a collection of movies, so it's given me ample time to kind of fire through some of that.
yeah.
For
Well,
the,
we've been playing mostly video games
mm,
together over the weekend, and then we'll watch a few movies if there's something that's interesting,
mhm.
and that's pretty much it. So
Yeah, I was kind of a board game guy too, so we got leaned into those a few. Me and my wife play a few of them, but there's only so many that are two players that are fun. So
yeah,
uh,
that's the main thing. You got to find stuff that's like cooperative.
yeah,
You're trying to play together, so
yeah,
you know.
probably doesn't help the close quarters when you're playing some game that you have to try to destroy each other in. Like
Yeah, exactly. So no,
very cool. Well, thanks for coming on. It's great to have you.
no, it's my pleasure. I mean, it's not like I get to practice my English very often. So I mean, because we speak French at home, so and it's not like I can't see a lot of people. So my English is not I'm not using it a lot. So just
Do,
once in a while, I
uh,
write in English, but I don't really speak it.
do you find you lose it that quickly if like a few months go by you don't speak it?
Well, I'm sure that uh, I'm sure that English people will hear my accent
Mm.
versus if, let's say, I've spent like a con season. I'm sure I'm much better around the end of con season, like because I had to speak English all the time.
Well, it's been a while
Uh,
since I've seen you, and I seem to recall your accent being a lot thicker. So perhaps I'm just misremembering it, or maybe it's better than you think.
Maybe I have. Who knows? Maybe it's the microphone or something. Maybe it's helping.
Yeah,
But
clears up the. No, you sound great.
yeah,
Your English is infinitely better than my French. So
oh, yeah. Well, you have a sort of like a French name. So
super French name. It's
so you,
André Julien Mayette.
yeah. So but you can't. Or it's like one of your parents French or.
Acadian. Yeah, my father came from an Acadian settlement here in called Punket, just outside of Antigonish in Nova Scotia.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh,
his
okay.
father and like that sort of area is from a lot of the Acadian settlers that kind of hung around.
Okay.
So yes, I can muddle through a very small amount. And I really would like to like take classes and learn it again. Just because my wife had done it for her work. She works for Agapure. Um,
Okay.
they're a Quebec company. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so she
They're
did
oh, that's right, because they bought a lot of
Scott,
companies.
yeah, they bought Scottsburn, which is where we used to work. And then it became Agapure. So
Okay.
yeah, so she's an accountant with them. So she did all these classes and did all this stuff to learn and I hear her talking to them on stuff, and it just makes me wish that it's one of those skills that it's like learning the guitar and stuff like that I never did as a kid that I kind of picked up when I got older that I wanted to do. So that's one on the list that I haven't got to yet, but
Yeah.
hopefully someday I can get back to that. It'd be fun. I think maybe we'll do Duolingo or one of those app things and try to learn that way.
Yeah, I'm sure they have much better techniques now to make you learn much faster.
I know. Imagine like the things when we were kids, like for me anyway, for like French class in school, that was all you got, right? So it's like a 2-hour course. And it wasn't like an hour class or whatever. And it wasn't like the funnest thing in the world. It's just conjugating verbs and masculine. And like, it's not a lot of stuff that would be practical in day-to-day use. I mean, it is if you're going to totally immerse yourself in French and in Canada we are bilingual, so there are opportunities for that. But I just found like I did okay in it, but I didn't find I enjoyed it as much as I think I'd enjoy in a more practical setting. So one of those apps would probably be a good thing.
I think it helps if you live like in a city that's bilingual. Like
yeah,
most of the cities that I've lived in all my life have been bilingual. So like I've Bathurst is bilingual, Moncton is bilingual. Then Montreal was. I mean, the areas that were bilingual, and then same when I was in Ottawa, bilingual. So
I always found it interesting that New Brunswick is the only actual official bilingual province, because Quebec is officially French and you guys are officially bilingual. So
they say Quebec is officially French, but if you live in Montreal, I mean, I don't know how it is. I haven't lived there in a long time, but there's still a lot of people that can speak English in Montreal.
Oh yeah, I've like in the past few years I've gone up there for concerts and to visit friends. Every year I usually make at least one trip there, and I've never had any issue. Like, I can muddle my way through if I had to, and I usually try to order in French and stuff, but once they hear me, they usually just start talking to me in English. But I've never run into any situation in which someone couldn't talk, that I couldn't get through.
When I was living there in the late 80s, early 90s, almost all the jobs that I got, I was speaking English. I had this, like, I was speaking more English when I was living in Montreal, which was really bizarre.
Maybe it's other parts of Quebec, but there's like this sort of, what's the word? Like stigma about people in Quebec about how they're violently French in the way that they'll be upset if you're not speaking French. But I've never encountered any of that anytime I've gone there.
I mean, it happens once in a while, but I mean, most of them, can manage some English, and they don't care. They're probably happy to practice it themselves,
I suppose so. Yeah. No, I've never seen anybody dogmatically, upset. And like, my cousin lived there. I think he only came back because of quarantine. He was working for some, I think it's either animation or some kind of an IT thing. And, he had no, like, I when I was up there last summer before that, we went out to dinner or whatever, and he was like, he doesn't speak any French, and he's like, I've had no problems. It's been, cakewalk. So,
and then in New Brunswick, you've got people that you don't know they're French because their English is so good. Like, especially like in Moncton, the Moncton area.
Yep.
Most people there, you don't even know you're speaking to French people, but because they can all speak English perfectly well.
Yeah, a lot of people I run into through the wrestling circuit. There's quite a few out of the Moncton area, and all of them have great English. But then sometimes you'll see two guys talking about their match, and they're both from the same area. They'll start talking in French, and it's funny because it's like a cavalcade of French words, and then they'll throw in some English wrestling term. So it'd be like, je suis blah blah, and then it'd be like suplex blah blah blah. It's just really weird. It's a fun juxtaposition to watch.
Yeah, but we're not as bad here in the northern area of New Brunswick, but because we're so close to Quebec, we have to be a little bit more French. So, but still, most of us are bilingual. I mean, I think so. But we still have this issue in New Brunswick with there is sort of like a little war between the English and French always. Especially with people that are just English. But there shouldn't really be, because
it's such a dumb thing to be upset about.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway.
I think some people think it's trying to erase their culture, and I can understand that, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Canada's kind of a bit of a melting pot at this point. So
and I mean, English people that can't speak French, I mean, I think it's not going to be too hard to learn a few words. It's not.
Oh, God, no. I mean, like I said, I know enough to muddle through if I have to. And I'm okay with trying to. It's kind of nice to try to, in those environments.
Yeah, exactly.
If I go to France someday, I'd like to try. Who knows? You can try a little bit. I think people appreciate that you're making an effort, at least.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, going to France, eventually we'll have airplanes to go.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Everything's closing around us. It's like there's almost like no airplanes going out of anywhere.
It's funny because someone on social media posted, and it was like right now they do these snapshots of all the plane routes going across North America, and they did a snapshot of like yesterday. It was like noon or something, and there was like 3 going across Canada, and there was like, you couldn't even see America underneath the amount going back and forth across the states. Literally, you could barely make out any of the country itself because there's just so many planes in the air above it at that moment. So, you talk about how we've been able to maintain it. I know their population is drastically larger than ours. I think it's like 9 times bigger, but still, it's like, we've made a lot of efforts. I know regionally they've been different, but a lot of sacrifices to try to contain this as much as we can. It seems like our neighbors have been a little less, cared a little less.
Well, we have, I don't know how many airports we had in New Brunswick, but we're basically just down to one now. There's only really Moncton that has a few airplanes that go in and out. But other than that, there's like, all of them have all closed down. I mean, nothing.
I think Halifax is significantly lower too. I think quite a few of them have.
Well, it's probably the only one that's going to stay open, maybe. I don't know. I mean,
it would be it's the only international airport in Nova Scotia. No, Cape Breton.
Well, isn't that closed down, Cape Breton?
I think it did, yeah. So
yeah. I mean, obviously it's probably just temporarily closed down, but still, before like it picks up again, it's going to take a little while. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So where were you? Where did you start? Where were you born at?
I was born in New Brunswick. I was born a little. I wasn't from there, but I was born in Dalhousie, which is near Campbellton.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's a very small town, but I'm not from there. I was just born there. That's where probably the nearest hospital.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But no, my parents were from Belledune and Pointe Verte, which is 2 little villages near Bathurst. And born there, but we didn't stay there very long because my father got a job up north in northern Quebec in Shefferville. It's a very you can only get there by airplane. There's no trains. There might be a train, but it's only like there's no passengers, But I think now I think that city's closed down. It's like a ghost town now, but I think there might be a few people there, but really not a lot. But even at its peak, there was maybe, I don't know, 2,000 people at the most. And this were like, we had snow in September till June. So there's like no summers. It wasn't, it was just mosquitoes in the summer for 2 months, and that was it.
It's kind of crazy to think about the idea that these ghost towns still exist, like where they're mostly abandoned, but there's still a few holdouts. Just
yeah,
it's it feels like it's one of those things you see a lot of in like documentaries about the States and stuff, but not so much around here. But there are, I think there's definitely a few here and there.
Yeah, so, but even though it was very remote, you can get there. I still had an interesting childhood. I still discovered comics. It was mostly European comics, like stuff like Tintin, Asterix, Lucky Luke, and stuff like that. There was a few American comics, like I would stumble on, some like Archie stuff was there. I could mostly translate it to French, but I could still see it. Same thing with like Wonder Woman and stuff like that.
Is this just like at a grocery store or convenience store?
Yeah, like at the grocery store. There's definitely no comic shops back then.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's one lonely guy in that 2,000 person village holding up a comic shop, just waiting for someone to find interest in comics.
Yeah, but I still got into music like every other kid. Even though there's this very small area, I was into Kiss and Van Halen and stuff like that. We're talking 70s here, But and then eventually. When I hit my teen years, my parents moved back to New Brunswick. So I went to high school in Bathurst. So for me, that was a much bigger place, even though we know now it's very small, but compared to where I used to be, this was actually pretty big,
What did your folks do?
My father was a surveyor. So,
okay.
And my mother, she was, I guess, secretary. I don't know what they call it today, but she was just, answer the phone, do stuff, billing, I guess, and stuff. So
okay, cool.
She was working at a shell plant in Belledune.
Okay. So the oil place?
Yeah, and then she worked, and then that closed off, and then she worked for the Port of Belledune. So, but they're both retired. They've been retired now for, oh my God, I don't know, 15 plus years. It's been a while. So,
been good for them, I assume.
Yeah. And then I moved to Montreal, so I needed to see a big city.
Mm-hmm.
So
was that out of high school?
Yeah, right out of high school. I didn't want to go to college or university. I said, well, like Mark and I wanted to do music. So back then music was big for almost everybody,
So you're just at high school now. So you're saying?
Yeah, like I'm 18.
Yep. Did you meet Mark in high school?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. I was in grade 10 when I met Mark. So I've been with Mark since I was 15. So,
wow. That's amazing and awesome.
Yeah. And
so what drew you to Mark in high school?
Pardon me?
What drew you to Mark in high school? What was the
What drew me to
attraction?
him? Well, back then, guys would wear really tight jeans, so he had a cute little butt, you know.
Excellent.
So yeah, he had a nice ass. Let's
Oh,
just say it, you know. Then he had,
is he like a rocker? That like that?
oh yeah, definitely a rocker. Kind of like,
Awesome.
kind of like a Nikki Sixx type of guy, you
That's
know,
awesome. Like, he
with
always
the
seems like
hair.
such a quiet guy to me.
Yeah.
That's cool that he was so into that sort of crowd and scene and that.
Oh yeah, we were both into metal and both into music a lot, and that's what I guess drew us, together. And
Awesome.
we were mostly friends. It was never like if we say, "Oh, we're dating." It wasn't
Mhm.
like, "Oh, are you my boyfriend?" It was just as soon as we met, we shared the same interests, and we were just always together.
Mhm.
So it's almost like we became friends and just stayed together.
Yeah.
So it was.
Relationship just sort of happened before you even realized you're in one.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I guess we're in a relationship. You know what I mean? Like,
That's
then
actually the
you,
best kind of being, because if it happens that naturally, then it's probably meant to be.
yeah, because then we wanted to do the same things. It's, oh, let's go to Montreal, let's do some bands, and we've been bands and stuff like that
Mhm.
together. And so
So
yeah,
what did you guys play?
I we both played guitar. Mark
Mhm.
started off as playing drums, and he still has a drum today and plays drums. But we
Mhm.
were both playing guitar, and we'd write stuff. But then I always had like I was a big fan of Gene Simmons. That's
Mhm.
what really got me to metal. Like when I was younger.
Simmons specifically?
Pardon me?
Specifically, Gene Simmons specifically was the
Yeah, I was really into Gene Simmons.
wow.
I liked Kiss, but I liked Gene Simmons the most
Was it just
among.
the persona, like the way
I
he?
guess so.
Yeah.
I guess I was always. I mean, because then in my teen, I got into the metal that I got into was way more. Like Kiss was in a way kind of commercial for me. Like
Yeah, they
when you
got that.
start,
They got there.
when you start got into like Megadeth and
Mm.
Metallica, Slayer, whatever, Anthrax. That's what started to get big in the 80s,
Hmm.
and that's what I was into. So for me, even though glam was there, I liked some glam, but it wasn't my favorite of all. Like I was more into what I guess heavier stuff.
Yeah,
But
that,
so yeah.
that was the golden era of that type of music for sure. Like that's when it was
Oh
all
yeah.
coming up and it was
Yeah.
everywhere. And yeah,
Yeah,
like
but then because I was into Gene Simmons, like if I were
mhm.
going back, I ended
Yep.
up wanting to play bass, even though I was probably better on guitar. But I just there was something about the bass that I felt I don't know I was kind of really heavy about it.
Hmm.
So I ended up playing bass often in the bands that I was in. But I would go back and forth between guitar and bass and whatnot. I mean, the band that I was most known for was a girl band in Quebec. Was called Barbarella, and I was playing bass at the time for that. But
That
I
is
could
a
have been,
fantastic name for a band.
yeah, but I could have been playing guitar too because I
Hmm.
did play some guitar on the album, and I was writing the songs on guitar, so they were playing my guitar parts.
Hmm.
So oddly enough, so it's just I like playing the bass, so
Yeah.
I would write the songs with the guitar and the bass, whatever, and then ended up playing bass on the album and then some guitar. But some of them were even playing my guitar solos. So it's like it's just strange. I mean, it's really just I'm sure like Gene Simmons plays a really good guitar,
Oh,
but
probably so. Yeah.
he just likes to be on the bass.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
it's kind of at this point, it's sort of filling a role. At this point,
yeah.
they're more of a show than not saying they're not musicians, but I mean that they've brought the level of showmanship to rock and roll that was sort of unprecedented at that time.
Yeah.
Certainly with the makeup and the spectacle and the blood and everything else they
Yeah.
do.
But there's a lot of musicians that you don't know they're very good on guitar. Like if you think, I mean, Glenn Danzig,
Oh yeah.
Glenn Danzig. I I mean, I was a big fan of Danzig and the Misfits and whatnot back in the 80s,
Mhm.
and I never realized that he actually wrote all these songs and he wrote them on guitar and everything. So it was just he was basically like a one-man show in a way. Like he hired people to work with him, but he was way more talented. He was not just a voice. He's actually wrote the music, he did everything, the lyrics and whatnot, and had this incredible voice. Obviously,
Yeah, that's impressive. I always like learning guitar was tough and like not tough, but it took a lot of work for me. So I couldn't like these people that are omni talented with all these different instruments. I'm always incredibly impressed by.
Yeah, well, some instruments are so similar with the strings, like
That's true.
bass guitar is the same thing.
Yeah, I had a
If you know
friend.
one, you know the other one. You can figure it out.
I had a friend. I had a friend that plays guitar as well, and we do dinner theaters together sometimes. And there's one of them we did. He just picked up a banjo and just like for one song, he just played the banjo. He never played before in his life, and he picked it up quite well. I was impressed with how quickly.
Well, you can kind of figure it out a little bit.
Yeah, it's a string less though, right? I think so. Like I feel like that would take a while for me to get used to the finger placement and all that for chords. But
yeah, and drums. I mean, I think most people can play like a standard beat if you explain to them what you have to do.
Yeah.
It's just when it gets more complicated then you can't do it, obviously, and then the timing and everything. But even I can play a little bit of drums, and I'm not really a drummer, so it's like
yeah, I'm not going to make that claim. I don't think I've ever touched a set in my life.
Oh no,
for sure. But
I mean, if I would redo things, I think I'd be more interested now to play the drums now that I know it more. Growing up, I mean, but it's really hard to be a drummer because you need to have parents that will understand, that you're going to make noise and stuff. Especially back then, there were no electronic drums. It wasn't
right.
Like
yeah,
you had to make a lot of noise, and so you needed a specific house where my neighbors wouldn't mind and stuff. So it's weird. What does that say? This meeting has been upgraded by the host, and
ignore that.
Right.
We used to have a free, like unlimited free amount of time that you could use it, and then I just noticed it said there was like a 40-minute time limit or something, and then that thing just said there is no time limit, so I really don't know.
It's first time I use Zoom. Oddly enough.
What? How have you made it this far into quarantine, like into COVID, without using Zoom?
I guess everything that I had to do was people were using other programs.
Okay. I was going to say, I assume like meetings for comic book stuff, you probably have to chat with people.
No. I mean, I use Skype a lot. Then there was someone who mentioned another one that I'm have to do soon. And what was it called? Let me take.
There's a bunch of them. There's like go-to meetings and this one.
Oh yeah, there's so many. The other one here that I'm getting into is what's it called? Kumo Space. So I don't know.
Okay. I'm sure that one will be coming along soon enough.
Like, what the hell's that? So.
Well, this one allows to record a lot easier, which is why I use it. So it's just a hit of a button, and then it sort of isolates the audio right afterwards. So it's real simple.
Yeah, and I've done even video with Facebook. There's a lot of it done with that. So
that's true. So were you only do you have any brothers or sisters?
No, I was just by myself.
Oh, right on. So that made it easy for you to fly out of the nest to your rock and roll dream.
It was probably hard for my parents that I moved because I was the only one, and then I left so quick. Like a lot of kids now, they stay home for much longer than I did. When you
right out of high school and you said I'm moving to Montreal to start my rock and roll career, what was their reaction?
Oh, my mother cried for like 2 months before I left. So it's like, I mean, I was crying too when I left, but I think she understood, why I wanted to leave too, and she had to realize that when she was my age, she had done the same thing. I mean, and she was living in Montreal. She had moved to Montreal. She was just 17 when she moved to Montreal, and she was doing jobs over there before she met my dad later on when she came back. But still, so I mean, I think she understood. So that helped, I guess. But it doesn't mean that it wasn't hard on her.
Yeah, for sure. So, that would be that's a tough for any parent to accept. Not alone just the kid leaving, but also the kids leaving for something that's not super stable, I guess, to put it lightly.
Oh, it really wasn't stable at all.
I
mean, we were poor. I mean, oh my God, we were living. The jobs back then, you're making $5 an hour, and then. For me, it was like, and back then people would get on like unemployment much quicker. So, and for me, back then I didn't want to work. I wanted to do music. I was focusing on that. So as soon as I could get unemployment, I would go for unemployment because I wanted to make sure that I could concentrate on the music. And, I ended up making something out of it. So I was, I guess, worth it for that. But things changed, obviously. And
were comics like always an idea, or is that like on the back burner when you
comics were music? Well, comics was because, I had no brothers or sisters. So, and I had to entertain myself a lot. So I was drawing a lot when I was a kid. So I do my own comics. I'm 9 or 10 years old, and I would try to make my own aesthetic stories and stuff like that. But then eventually I got into music as a teenager, and I put the comics aside for a while, but I was always interested in them. But I was more into I was never really into like American comics. I was more into like newspaper strips,
Okay.
like
Yeah,
I was,
cartoon.
yeah, I was like, Garfield, Calvin and Hobbes and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So anyway, so comics I read when I was on the road doing the music, and then eventually I decided, okay, I'll see if I could do that because music wasn't making a lot of money.
Mm.
So
So what was the transition? Was it like, did you just say I'm done with music, I'm going to focus on comics, or were you trying to do them overlap?
I was trying to do both, but it
Mhm.
was not very easy. And I was, when you're doing comics, I figured, okay, how do you get into comics? It's not like I knew there were schools like Joe Kubert, stuff like
Mhm.
that, but it wasn't easy for a Canadian to go there, and it's very expensive.
Yeah, and also the information was just in the back of a comic book back in the day. It wasn't, you couldn't go to a website and check everything out and learn
Yeah,
all the stuff you need to learn.
yeah, and back in in the early '90s when comics were like pretty big, back
Mhm.
then people almost everybody were aware of comics, and I mean I would read a few Batman comics and stuff like that. I was into that.
Mhm.
I think everybody. I mean, after the movie in '89, I think a lot of people got into Batman comics.
Yeah, it was a bit of
So
a boom then, that's for sure.
yeah, so but for me, I couldn't. Even though I tried to draw the comics like the superhero type
Mhm.
stuff, I just couldn't. It wasn't really in me. I was more into the cartoony, more newspaper strip stuff. So I would concentrate. So I got out of comics pretty quick. I was more into. I preferred manga. Like when manga really got into like mid '90s, manga really got in like Rama One Half and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So I got more into that. That was more cartoony. Was more I thought fit my style more. But again, how do you get to work on that? It was bizarre. So I tried visual arts at university. That wasn't working out. It was just they were concentrating on stuff that I didn't find interesting. It was like do these paintings and it had to be abstract and stuff, and I was just I don't get it.
Yeah.
So then I decided I'm going to try animation. And animation again, I just couldn't get into it because it was just I don't know what it was, but I know a lot of people that are into comics started with animation, but for me it didn't work out. So I ended up as a third choice into graphic design. And I think that was probably the best choice for me because it showed me how to lay out books, do logos. So I was able to, so becoming, a self-publisher at the end of the day, I was able to get everything ready for the printer. So I knew every aspect of the job to get the comic out to the printer and get it all done. And I even learned HTML. So at first I was able to do my own websites and
Mm.
everything like that. So I think I'm glad I ended up with the graphic design.
Mhm.
So, and I worked as a graphic designer for many years. I was doing the comics at night, and eventually the comics ended up making enough money that I was able to quit the graphic design. And now I barely do any graphic design. I mean, I'll put the books together. Sometimes I'll design logos, but even at that, I even got lazy with that. I ended up I often ask Matt Moylan, he works at UDON, and
Mhm.
he publishes some of the Ménage à Trois. He does, they do the omnibus editions of
Mhm.
the books,
Yep.
and I often ask him to whip me up a logo really quick, and he's pretty fast, and I like what he does. So it's like,
Oh, excellent. Yeah, no, I'm a graphic designer. That's my day
yeah,
job.
I knew you were a graphic designer as
Yeah.
well. I've seen your stuff, so yeah. So I mean, I think it's a good career path for someone who wants to do comics. I think it's something that you can do on the side and at the same time.
It was certainly, that was kind of my goal initially. Like my brother took the course and I thought, hey, if I want to do comics someday, this will be, give you the tools to do it. Sadly, life got busy and I haven't done much in the comic front, but the level of guilt I'm feeling about it is starting to get overwhelming. So I think it's time I think it's time I write
Well, at
something
least,
first and then put it out there. So
well, with comics, there's no age limit to comics. I
yeah.
mean, people have made comics in their 40s, 50s, and that's when they started to get big. So it's like there's
Yeah.
really no age limit.
I like the format that some of the people in the East have been doing. I find with just a done in one book that you can just like I initially did a few little things that I did that with the intention of doing more issues. My initial idea was kind of I wouldn't say copy because I have no idea if they actually read my comic to do it, but somebody else at a bigger publisher started doing the same idea, the same everything.
Yeah.
So I just sort of got frustrated by that and thought, well, there's not much of a point in continuing on. And then the other one was just sort of a little indie thing, but it was also just, there's a lot of pressure to keep doing a new issue here and there. Like, so I like the idea of the done in one graphic novel, maybe at least that way you have a one finished story. You can say this is all of it. And there's no pressure to like get it all out.
Well, it's like
30 days or 60.
Like a lot of people were questioning why I ended Ménage à Trois, but I mean, at the end of the day, I wanted something complete. Like I was hitting my 50s, and I was like, oh my God, I want to make sure that this is completed, and I want to enjoy it as a complete something package that I can sell. So it was one of the main reasons I wanted to stop it. I mean, you can keep going forever, but what happens if then you die? The thing was never completed.
I was about to say that. I was going to be like, well, you could die, get hit by a bus tomorrow, and then it's not done, and
so it's like, to me, I figured I have the chance to complete this. Let's complete it. And I did. So, but now, now I prefer to work now on little things, little complete things, like either a graphic novel or you plan it as a 4-issue story or something like that, So I think that's better than just saying, okay, this is going to be ongoing forever and ever, So even though the webcomics are always, they tend to keep on going for quite a while.
They sure do, yeah. Especially when you just discover somebody's new one and then you start going through them. Because then you're clicking, you're like, where does this end? And then you realize that you're on like page 50 of 6,000. Ways to go. So what was the first one? Like, what was your first comic that you started out at doing when you were overlapping from college or university?
Well, I was trying different things at home that I thought I could pitch to companies and stuff like that, but it never really worked out, and none of them made any sense anyway. So it's probably a good thing. But
what were they like? Just slice of life stuff, or is like something different?
Well, I would try to do stuff that was more like manga and stuff like that. Like I would try to do my own kind of like Dragon Ball type of thing,
It's funny that manga sort of drew you into it because like I talked to Brenda and her story was similar in that it was like Sailor Moon and that sort of stuff. Animated manga that got her into it too. So it seems to be like with female creators, manga seems to be like a pretty big gateway. Because I think Danica as well as like that was sort of her start too.
Well, I mean, I did like American. So, like for me, like American, I was a big fan of the Batman Adventures. The
animated series.
Yeah, the animated series, but also the comic books that were based off the
Ty Templeton stuff. That was fantastic.
Yeah, Ty Templeton and Mike Parobeck and stuff like that. So I was pretty big on that.
It's funny that those have still endured. Like if you go to the dollar store now, there's like hardcover volumes of those comics there.
Well, I mean, to me, that's my Batman.
Yeah. Well, the animated series was my favorite. Like, if I had to pick a definitive, and their version of Superman too. Like, that's to me, those are the best analogs of those characters I've ever seen.
Yeah. So to me, if you want to introduce someone to Batman, I think this is it.
Yeah.
But, well, especially at the younger age, but even at that age, they were so mature. They're so well done.
They had some pretty dark themes. I mean, the cartoon specifically, but the comics echoed that as well. Yeah. Especially for kids, like there's some truly heartbreaking, and I think it was one of the first things that I saw as a kid that showed that a villain isn't necessarily 100% just I'm going to rule the world and I'm an evil jerk kind of character. Like you saw nuanced depictions of what brought them to to where they were, and most of them had incredibly tragic stories. Like the Mr. Freeze episode is, and the Clayface ones are like incredibly sad.
I know.
You're like, I can relate to why this person is the way they are. It's you watch their downfall, and it's like watching Breaking Bad or something. You watch someone become a bad guy and you feel bad for them.
Yeah, exactly. So, but getting back to the manga, I think maybe the reason I got into the manga was probably because I've ever read some Ranma One Half.
I know of it. I haven't read much of it.
Okay, well, Ranma.
I know the concept. It's he gets wet and he becomes a woman, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But it's so funny. It to me it was almost. I think it was the humor that brought me into it because I really liked like I said, I like newspaper strips. So I like to laugh. I like to make people laugh. So I think that's why that the manga really went that direction because
So it
I
wasn't
figured.
necessarily the art style; it was like the
I think it was the humor. I
yeah.
like the
All right,
humor
cool.
of it,
I can get
and
behind that totally.
yeah, because there was not that much humor, you know, in the American stuff.
Oh God, no! I think
There was like none.
no, it was all superhero stuff. But
It was mostly violent with gritty teeth and everything. So it's just I don't know. I mean, it wasn't something I could see myself doing. It was not for me. So
yeah,
even though I could enjoy it on occasion, so I think
well,
that's why I went for that. So
yeah, that's interesting about the humor aspect because for me, it's the same sort of thing. Like I was really drawn to Bone when I was a kid. Like it's still
yeah,
probably one of my favorite independent comics ever made.
yeah.
And
The Tick was
yeah,
also pretty big back
and
then. You know,
Gru was another
yeah,
one
Gru. I had
of
some
those
Gru.
were I read so much of that when I was a kid.
Yeah, so I mean, you see, I think that's why I was leaning more towards the manga. It was
Hmm.
more because of what they were putting out. The humor in it was more attractive to me,
Yep.
and then everything that I ended up doing afterwards had humor in it. Most of it, I was trying to make people laugh.
Hmm.
So that's when I started the webcomic in 2000, the Cool Cat Studio,
Hmm.
and that was just I saw people putting comics online, and I decided that would be it for me. I figured that's probably the way to go. I mean, I couldn't see any other openings anywhere else. Like the newspaper strips were dying. I mean, they were there, but they were just like, they're basically reruns. There's not a lot of new content there.
That's
So
why it always impresses me when one of them ends one. Like when they ended Calvin and Hobbes, I was impressed that they, something that had been gone for so long that the guy had put a cap on it and said, "This is it."
yeah,
Yeah, because so
so
many of them just go on and on and on and never
yeah,
stop.
but it's still being syndicated and it still runs in newspapers,
That's
even
true.
though it's been done for years. So because he has a spot in the newspaper, he's not opening a spot for someone else.
That is true. I guess I didn't thought about it that way. Yeah,
But
because he's still making money off it.
well, that's it. I mean, Peanuts is still syndicated.
Yeah.
All these comics are all syndicated, and most of them are people have ended their comics or they're either dead or whatnot.
Yeah.
And so, with that said, these syndicates are making money off of something that these have been done for years, and so new artists cannot really take their place. It's, so you're kind of stuck. Where do you go? So you
Yeah.
have to. So I think web comics were sort of like the only place to do that type of art where you could do like try to make a gag a day or in that type of serial story versus doing like comic books, which
Mm.
were totally a different thing. So but I've dabbled into trying to do comic books too, and I got hired by a few companies here and there to do more comic books, but I've yet to do anything really like superhero-ish for like the big tour or anything. But
Hmm.
I've started my own little superhero little universe
Hmm.
with my own publishing company, but we'll see where that goes. We've done a few things up to now, and it's interesting. It's like gets I can explore it without having to work for someone like the big two. So I can do my
Yeah,
own
I
thing.
imagine it's a pretty rigid structure for them that you'd have to fight into for writing.
Yeah, yeah, probably. And and even at that, like even in the superhero stuff these days, like I'm reading a lot of stuff that's creator owned anyway.
Mm.
So they do their own thing, and I like the freedom to do my own thing. As soon as I work for someone else, I'm never really fully happy. It's
Mm.
like I feel it's not mine. It's different. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, there's a part of me that's always wanted to try collaborating with someone just to see what it's like, but I've never had the opportunity yet. And I don't know
Well,
if it would be as rewarding. I guess is like
well,
you.
I like collaborating. I have no
Yeah,
problems with it as long as I own part of it.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
If
If it's somebody else's thing, and you're just doing work for hire. It's not quite the same.
it's a little bit different. I
Yeah.
mean, some people don't mind it, and I don't mind it either if it's not for too long. Like, let's say you agree to a project, and it's going to be like X number of months. It's not too bad, but I wouldn't want to be doing just that.
Hmm.
Like, it would have to be, like a little bit of my own stuff, and then okay, maybe a little bit of that stuff. But
Yeah, it
I don't think I
seems.
could be just fully 100%. I'm working for someone else. I'll never own these characters. It's not. I didn't create it. I don't think I could do that. That would drain me. It would be like being in a cover band.
Hmm.
You're just playing top 40 in a bar, they're not even your songs. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. It's
Yeah,
to me,
I don't think it's fulfilling, I guess. I imagine it pays the bills or somewhat, you know, he makes money, but
that's pretty much it. It
yeah.
pays the bills. I mean, you may enjoy it because you enjoy playing music or you enjoy drawing and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I mean, you must feel a little bit inside that you'd like to do something that is yours, you know. So
Yeah, I have a theory that at the heart of every, you know, pro person that does, or at those sort of bands, there's, you know, that independent project they want to work on, or that's, you know, just out of reach, hopefully someday.
yeah.
So was the big hit for you, was that Menage a Trois, or was there like they cut you kind of noticed
Well,
more, or was there?
well, Penny and Aggie, after Cool Cat Studio, even though Cool Cat Studio at the time was still fairly popular, considering webcomics were new,
Yeah, right.
there weren't a
Yeah, you
lot of
kind of got
them.
in the ground floor there for
Oh
sure.
yeah, I was pretty much like
Yeah.
was one of the first ones. I mean, I'm not the first one, but
Mhm.
I'm among the, you know, when they talk about people that started this, I'm certainly among them.
Mhm.
So that was pretty popular at the time for the amount of people that were reading
Mhm.
comics back then, online comics. But then Penny and Aggie, that got pretty big too. I mean, it was not to the level of Ménage à Trois, but it was still considered popular, you
Mm.
know, even though it was not to the other level. Ménage à Trois just went exploded. It was just a different type of popular. It was a popular that, you know, a lot people that weren't into it at all, into online comics, would discover it somehow because a friend sent it over to a friend. A lot of word of mouth. And
What do you think? What do you think the draw was for that? Like, what do you think drew the attention? The subject
uh,
matter, or the?
well, I mean, the whole thing with the virgin who, you know, who's
Yeah,
about, he's about to be spiritual.
I've read quite a bit of it. Like I
He's about
started
to
reading
be,
it a while ago. And I haven't made it all the way through it yet, but I do plan
yeah.
on picking up the collections, and it's really fun. It to me, it's like a modern day kind of Three's Company, but like
Yeah, well,
inverted.
that's when I started it. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do more of sort of like a modern Three's
Mhm.
Company, because I liked the show back in the
Yeah,
70s.
it's a good show.
So,
And
but
it's certainly like what I like about it is it doesn't hold your hand with like sexual innuendo and stuff. Like a lot of people shy away from that, especially with the art style that's, you know, that you use. But it works really well. Like it's fantastic. And
yeah,
I can see why people would be drawn to that, because it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it shies away from anything. But it's not like overt in your face. It's just, this is just how it is, and it's not holding your hand through it either. You know, it's well done.
yeah. Well, thanks.
No problem.
I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it's super fun.
And you know, it was, I had the Penny and Aggie was considered a funny comic strip,
Mhm.
web comic, but Menage a Trois, I wanted to bring it to another level, and
Did you
I
get
think
any kind of blowback from anybody because of it?
well, a lot of people were kind of surprised and shocked that I had done that, because
No.
Penny and Aggie was certainly not, the humor wasn't to that level.
Yeah.
But it's not that it was a different type of humor,
Mhm.
and it wasn't as sexual, and
Mhm.
so a lot of people were kind of shocked that I had done that. But you know, to me it felt very natural.
Yeah.
I was just being myself basically, and without, I had no restriction. It was almost like, I'm gonna say, like F it all, you know what I mean? Like
Mm.
I'll do whatever I want, and but which was good, because then you could see me being just
Mhm.
doing my own thing and not caring what people thought or whatever. But uh, after a while, it was really hard to get like advertising for the site and stuff like that.
Really? They thought the content was too adult,
Just
and
too much. I was getting banned everywhere. I was getting banned for it was. I mean, I
that's
love Americans.
surprising.
I love Americans and whatnot, but when it comes to content, they're very, very strict, and
Yeah.
they're kind of prudish.
But it's not overtly like, it's not like
No,
it's
there's
pornography or anything to
no,
that extent. It's not even close to that.
no, because you don't even see any actual sex happening. You know,
No,
it's like,
absolutely not.
but you saw cleavage and nipples here and there,
Mhm.
and I guess for them it was just too much, so
Wow.
they would ban me for that. You know, like as soon as they would consider it titillating, I guess
Yeah.
they banned you, and it's
Well,
like, well, that's very subjective as to what is titillating. You know what I mean? So
yeah, for sure.
so I thought it was kind of a strange approach, because like in Quebec or in France or whatever, even Canada,
Mm.
it wasn't they wouldn't have cared, you know. So it's like
No.
so. But
There's a
anyways,
weird, like,
the ads were in the States, so I had no choice than to dial it down a little bit around the end, you know. So,
yeah, that's a shame you had to do that. Yeah, there's a weird puritanical sort of the I don't know if it's just the origins of the States itself, or just some of its base, or how it's still kind of deeply religious, or what in some parts. But yeah, they really hold on to some of that stuff, and it's quite the censorship. It like I understand it's a huge debate, and maybe not one we're going to solve today, but but stuff like that, your comic is really benign compared to some of the other things out there, and some of the other things that are allowed, you know, to thrive out there. You
yeah.
can't tell me that like watching the Kardashians or one of those sort of shows is more wholesome than your comic. Like, it's ridiculous.
Well, that's like I didn't see the comic any worse than, let's say, the American Pie movies.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
Yep.
you see a bit of nudity in that, and they're talking about sexual stuff, and it's all done in a comedic way, and that's really all it was about, and that's all we were doing. But and yet, you know, I'm sure teenagers are seeing American Pie all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I don't know why teenagers could not see what we were doing when it was no different than American Pie.
Yeah.
So,
And to think that they're not being exposed to very similar things every day, everywhere.
yeah, and on top of that, I mean, our characters were adults versus American Pie, they were teenagers.
Yeah.
You know, so you'd think that was even worse. So it's like, but no. So I guess whenever it's drawn, I guess they see it differently as something that's on TV or movies, or it's weird. It's so strange. It's
yeah, that's incredibly strange to me.
it's art, you know.
Yeah, I know. And you think that it being drawn would be less of you know, less invasive than actually seeing another human physical depiction of a naked human. So
especially when it's cartoony, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not even real, you know.
I know. But anyway, it's strange what line. Like, I always I say this quote a lot, and I say I'm always kind of amazed at the hills some people are willing to die on, and some of them are incredibly dumb. Incredibly dumb. Especially in the modern day, like with all political stuff and all that. But it's the sort of the decisions, the lines in the sand people draw, they won't walk over, don't want other people to walk over, are incredibly amazing to me sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I was glad though that within the comic I was able to show a lot of I don't know, acceptance of people's, let's say, sexual orientation or gender or whatever, you know, like gender expression. I touched on a whole bunch of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, you know, you would think that because I was touching on all these things, that I would only appeal to, let's say, the left, you know, versus, but I seem to have appealed on both sides. So which I think is kind of interesting, because, you know, sometimes I'm surprised that some people who are on the right are.
How do you know that they're on the right? Like, is it that
people...
Oh,
I can tell.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
Well, you can tell by the people that, you know, people that follow you, who they follow, who they, you know, and you know, and sometimes where you're shipping the stuff in the area and stuff like that. I mean, because we ship all over the world, you know. Sure. But I kind of have my doubts on some, but that's good, you know. I mean, I wanted to appeal to as many people as possible, because at the same time, I want people on both sides to be more accepting of people's, you know, sexual orientation and stuff like that.
For sure. And it's funny what brings some people together, or what can unite some people in a way, because I mean, I'm sure there's people on both sides of the political spectrum that are into all kinds of, you know, like I was actually listening to the Savage Love podcast. I don't know if you ever heard that, but Dan Savage, he's a sex advice columnist. He does this podcast for people calling with their relationship questions. And he was talking about how the woman, the people that stormed the Capitol, the woman that got shot and killed, she's like a super Republican, like flags for Blue Lives Matter on her lawn, all this sort of stuff. And she was in a throuple, like she was a super Republican, but her and her husband had like a girlfriend to live with them, and they were like a 3-person relationship. And it's like, it was really surprising.
It's weird, eh?
Yeah, I know. Like that, like it just, I guess it makes you examine your own biases in a way, to think like, well, I guess just because someone has certain ideologues, that doesn't necessarily mean socially that they feel the same way. So that's very
well, that's why I was surprised that I was able to you know, get people on both sides. Oddly enough, I guess it was just the approach, the way I did it. I say I, but it was Dave who co-writes with me is also deserves a lot of credit for that too. And I guess we're both pretty centrist, like we're not very political. We don't.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah, so
I follow it, and I have my opinions, but I don't have.
Yeah, I mean, like, and in Canada, it's also quite different than the States. Like we don't really have people that are that far right. It's like
there are a few, but not.
They may say that they are, but
Yeah.
they're not really. So I think we're pretty a centrist kind of country. I think.
Yeah, I find most people, it usually boils down to their finances. It's mostly it's people that vote for the my God, my brain stopped working. The conservatives are generally it's because they want to save as much of their money as possible.
Yeah, and but there's also the whole populist movement, which I think is more what's going on right now. It's more of a populist type of thing, on the right. So,
yeah.
But I'm not very political. I follow it just so I know in the news if I'm, will I be safe if I go here or not?
Yeah, that's fair. Totally fair.
That's pretty much it. I mean, I have other stuff to worry about than politics.
Oh God, yeah. No, I once saw a quote that said, "Life's too short, so just argue with people about politics on the internet as much as possible." And I thought that was pretty funny. So no, I stay out of those conversations. I don't believe anyone's opinion's been changed.
And even for when it comes time to voting, I mean, I vote because I think everybody should vote. But
absolutely,
I'll vote for the person who I think will take care of the region that I'm in.
Yeah.
The most. I'm not looking at who's the party or anything. I'm looking for a person. I think
that's the way it should be.
That's the way it should be.
The way the system was built. When people are like, "Well, we need to vote for this because," I don't like that this guy might win, so we need to vote for this guy because if we break up the votes, then that guy might win. And it's like, I get it, I totally understand it, this sort of strategic voting, but it's like the system's designed in such a way that you should just vote for who you think should win. And if everyone did that, then maybe more people that weren't of the big options would win and have some different things going on instead of the same.
Yeah, vote for the candidate that you think in your area that makes the most sense. And don't look at the rest, So.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people do because it's a weird system.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool. So when did you end Ménage à Trois?
That was let me see, 2000. What are we? 221.
Yeah,
I think I ended. I think it was early 2019. I think.
Okay, I was gonna say I didn't think it was that long ago because
no, it's not that long. It's about. I'm almost going to be 2 years. Yeah, it would have been 19 because I'm almost close to 2 years of doing the spinoff, Exorsisters Comics, and that's going to be it would have been around like probably April 2019. So.
And what brought your involvement with some of the Archie stuff? Because you do some work.
The Archie stuff.
Yeah.
Basically, some of the people that worked at Archie were reading my webcomics, and some of them could kind of see that my style was sort of similar, and I could probably pull it off. So I started just being. At first, I was approached to see if I could work on Josie and the Pussycats, and they asked me to do like do my own way to draw it, and that didn't go anywhere. But I think
was it just drawing or was it writing as well?
It was just drawing.
I was going to say it's a shame they didn't get you to write it because it feels like the concept behind the female rock band would fit very well into your wheelhouse.
I could totally write a Pussycat story. I mean, I had some ideas and I pitched them ideas, but they weren't really listening. I mean, they had their own thing. I mean, whenever they eventually started to, I think, chase the superstars or whatever, the superstars of the moment, mostly people that were on social media and really big on social media.
Oh, really?
And I wasn't on social media, so I mean, how could I prove any popularity in social media if I'm not even on it? So
is that something that do you think the big markets pay a lot of attention to, like in the way that, like, if you're an indie writer, is it not so much the quality of your writing per se, but just how many people follow you and will follow you to a Marvel book or a DC book?
Well, it's certainly what it seemed like it. I mean, is it that? I don't know. I mean, I don't work there, so I can't
Yeah,
say.
that's true.
But the impression that I got was that's what it was. But that's the feeling I got. But I could be totally wrong. I won't.
Oh,
say.
it makes sense. I mean, a lot of those companies are obviously profit driven. So if they think that, by hiring, say, me or somebody else, not me specifically, but if I was some dude who had an indie comic and a lot of followers online, that if they all follow me to the book that I write for Marvel,
Yeah.
this
I mean, I
one-
think things may have changed, and maybe they realized that didn't do anything. That didn't really because I
Yeah.
mean, for me, like when I did my first Kickstarter, I didn't even have any social media presence at all, and it was my biggest Kickstarter of all time. So it's just to show that social media had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
So because I mean, social media is kind of weird. I mean, you're just talking to, it's like talking out loud in a bunch of people in a crowd. Who's gonna listen? It's like
Yeah.
so.
It's a weird barometer for success in the way
Yeah.
that, like, literally to have, followers or whatever, it's the bare minimum to follow. So, you know what I mean? Like to hit like on their Facebook page is the bare minimum you have to do to support somebody, really.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily an indicator of sales, of all that stuff. I have like 2,000 friends on Facebook. That doesn't mean they're all going to go buy something that I put out, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
it's certainly not a measuring stick.
Yeah, but eventually with the Archie, because I was always I mean, I was especially friends with Alex Segura, and he was working there for a while, and then he really liked my art, so he was trying to push them to always hire me whenever he was doing a story. So I did, but he ended up not doing a lot of writing for Archie, so anytime he would write, then okay, he'd approach me. But if he wasn't writing, nobody would approach me. So I did do some little stories in the digest and stuff like that, but not that much. They had their regulars, and even now they only really have Dan Parent now that works for them, and that's pretty much it.
I was going to say, it seems like Dan Parent is one of the
Well, he's like
the most.
he's basically the only one now. I mean, because they're not putting out that much stuff. I mean,
Yeah, because they did a real drive a while ago, and they had Mark Waid writing it, and Archie and Zdarsky doing Jughead for a while there, and like.
But that's been over for years.
Yeah,
now.
I know, quite a while ago, because it was a real push for a while, and then it just seemed to kind of trickle off.
Yeah, now there's almost like nothing coming out. There's like the digest, and there's only like 4 digests a month. So and they only do like a news story at the beginning, and it's only like a 5-page. So if you're 4 digests, 4 5-page stories, it's only 20 pages, and they can give it to Dan Parent, and he'll do them, and that's done. So there's nothing else. They have a few little mini series here and there that they'll do on occasion, but they seem to they don't want to do more like the Archie style for those. They seem to go more for a different type of artists.
I think I read that they're putting a real drive on their superhero stuff, aren't they? Like the Black Hood and the Shield and all that next year, or this year.
Oh, they try that every year.
I know.
Every 5 or 6 years, I think they try. And
I remember reading Black Hood comics when I was a kid, when they tried to, like, when Image was such a big deal, these like gritty superhero comics, and they tried to they did some kind of different imprint and put like the Web and the Shield and Black Hood and all those on it, and they made it really dark, and I don't know, it's just strange. It's weird.
I remember when some of their characters were under the Impact line.
Yeah, that was the one. Yeah, Impact.
Line. Yeah. I remember the Impact line from like the early 90s.
That's probably when I would have been like 7 or 8, probably when I was reading that. But I remember there's like this gritty like guy in the street, and the Black Hood gets killed. He's like shot in the head in the first episode.
Yeah.
And the guy picks up the mask, and he's like the new Black Hood, and it just it was a very strange, dark, twisted sort of take on it. And I distinctly remember those covers in those comics. It's fun, and every once in a while they dust it off. But I seem to recall reading an article that they were doing it again this year with some pretty big names in it. So it seems like they're heading towards the superhero genre.
It's possible. I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, they like I said, they try this every couple of years. They're probably hoping for eventually like either a TV series or a movie based on.
That's what I'm thinking, because there's so much of those comics that now have Netflix shows or like unassuming things that have taken off because of that.
Yeah.
They're probably hoping to cash in on that with their own property.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, why not? They already have 2 shows based off of 3 shows, I think, based off of Riverdale. They have Archie. They have the Riverdale. They have the Sabrina, and I think they had a Katie Keene or something.
Yeah, I
So
think Sabrina
mean,
ended this year, if I recall
yeah.
correctly. But
So I mean, I wouldn't see why not. Why they wouldn't want to try to have some sort of a Netflix series or something on one of their superhero titles. You know, it's like
yeah, I think I tried Riverdale. I think I watched the first episode when it came out, maybe the first couple, and it really just seemed to me like somebody had written a teen drama show and they had it on the shelf, and they're like, let's just take this and change everybody's names to kind of just be characters from the show.
That's pretty much what it is.
That's what it felt like. Nothing felt
like.
connected. Or
yeah.
When Archie was like banging Miss Grundy, I was like, all right, I think I'm.
That's not the same Miss Grundy. That's
I think I'm out.
Yeah.
So,
now I watched the first season, and that was enough for me. I mean, it didn't really feel like the kind of Archie that I was familiar with, which is fine. I mean, it's a lot of kids, teenagers, and even adults are enjoying the show.
Yeah, it's a very popular show,
and good for them. You know, I mean, it's not, you know, I have so much stuff to watch. It just didn't.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing for me.
It wasn't in one of the ones that I was interested in anyway. So yeah. Sabrina, I think I watched a few episodes at the beginning, which I thought it looked pretty good. I just didn't follow up on it. And the Katie Keene, I didn't even check that out. So.
I was disappointed when the cat didn't talk. That was my biggest.
Oh, that's right. The cat.
The cat doesn't talk on Sabrina, and I don't know why, but that was a sticking point for me. I was like, come on. I was, as a kid watching the old show. Like I do like what they did with it. It's very, to do a darker sort of adult take on it. So.
Yeah,
but
they had a good cast.
Yeah,
I saw it. That was good.
But you still do covers and stuff occasionally for Archie stuff, right? Like you did.
I haven't done anything for them since the Archie meets Ramones, so it's been a while. They just don't. They're not like I said. They're not really doing much that they can come and ask me to, because like in the classic style, they when they think of me, they think classic style, you know. So even though I can do other stuff, I mean. Like when I did a cover for their Josie and the Pussycat reboot, it was not in the Archie style, but whatever.
Like your gem in the Holograms cover was pretty. Not
yeah, I did. I ended up doing the gem. Actually, I think I did. For someone who was not able to do Josie and the Pussycat, I guess this was a nice
consolation prize.
Consolation prize, I guess. Considering I was more. I mean, in a way, I had, even though I was kind of like already a teenager when Gem came out, I was familiar with it. I knew what it was, and I enjoyed it. I felt maybe more connected to Josie and the Pussycat, but it doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy the Gem and the Holograms, you know. So it was fun. I mean, and also they had updated it, so it was not exactly like back then, you know, like the 80s. So I had to kind of follow the designs that Sophie Campbell, I think her name was, did, and she had done a good job. So that was fun. So
what's on the horizon for you now?
I'm finishing off some stuff from my last Kickstarter. I'm a little bit late with that, but I'm almost done. I'm getting there. I started shipping stuff. I've been shipping stuff for the last few weeks to, like, some people are getting their stuff earlier, but they're missing some items that I need to finish. But I'll be shipping them the missing parts.
Okay.
Very soon. So I'm finishing off a one shot with Z from Ménage.
Okay.
So it's basically her on the road with her band. They're going to Vancouver, and stuff happens in Vancouver. There's a few other characters from Ménage that show up, like Gary is there, Yuki is there. We see a little bit of Dee Dee. And so it's kind of fun. It's nice to draw these characters again, you know, after so long.
It's nice, almost like coming home in a comfortable kind of way.
Yeah, so I'm almost done with that, and then I'm doing a one shot for the superhero line that we have. It's called the Ultraliminals, and it's basically characters from either Ménage à Trois or Pixie Tricks comics we've changed them into superheroes. And like Dee Dee is Incredibile, and
great name.
Everybody has like one character is Nightgale, which is sort of like a Batman type of character and stuff. So it's a way for me to explore this and see what I can do with this. But we're gonna do our own thing obviously it's going to be more funny. We're going to be going more for humor than super dark stuff, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, I just can't really do super dark stuff. I mean, I can, but it's going to be
Yeah, but it
not
feels like
what you not
it
what you
feels like
expect.
pandering if it's not something that you want to do. If you're just doing it because it's what you have to do, then it's not. You got to do it in your own voice.
Yes, we're just more at ease with the funnier stuff. It just comes more naturally, so might as well just stick to what you know, you know.
For sure.
So, yes, I'll do the once that's done and I've shipped that. I'll be prepping for the next Kickstarter, which will probably be around June, because the last one was June. Usually, I do a Kickstarter once a year, and then it takes me a whole year to finish all the projects that I promised and ship it all out, and then I'm ready to do the other Kickstarter. So it's
Awesome.
usually it. And then maybe hopefully later in the year, maybe if everybody gets vaccinated, maybe we'll have maybe 1 or 2 cons before the year ends. Who knows? It would be nice
It would
because
be nice to go to a convention again for sure.
maybe one would be nice, but I mean, we'll see. If not, it'll be in 2022. I mean, it's I'll just play along with whatever happens. It's nothing you can do really.
No, really.
No, so I'm still drawing. I wish sometimes I'd draw faster, but I don't know if it's with age or whatnot. But I seem to not be as fast as I used to be. I used to I could pump it out like really a lot,
Yeah.
especially like in my 30s and my early 40s. But I don't know, man. You hit 50 and it's like, man, I'm not going as fast as I used to. Like, is it? I don't know what I can't explain it, but it is what it is. So it's like,
maybe you're just so attention to detail now that you're just so making
that
sure
could
it's fine point.
that could be it. Maybe I'm paying too
Yeah.
much attention to certain things. I mean, I do sometimes look at the old stuff and it's like, oh my god, I let that pass, you know. But it is, you can't change what you've become over time, you know.
That is
So
true, and the beauty of the way you do it is that it's all you. So like you get to do that. You know, you don't have some editor yelling in your ear, but a deadline. So
it's like, I mean, I could have hired someone to help me with the inking part, the inking stage of this project, and I would have probably had it done more on time, what I had thought I'd be done with. But I figured, I think people don't mind waiting another month or whatever, and it'll be all me versus, you know, someone else who helped me out, you know. So it's
for
like,
sure.
I mean, depending on if I was maybe working at DC or whatever, I'd say, okay, well, we need someone to help me out because I can't make it out. You know, I won't be able to make it.
Yeah, I imagine you'd have a pretty rigorous schedule there.
Yeah, but at least the way that I do things, I have a little bit more freedom, and it's probably why I still do what I do versus working for these big companies. You know. So,
Yeah. Well, you're making it your own. You're doing some great stuff.
Yeah.
For sure. Awesome. And you still play? You still play much?
Music?
Yeah.
Once in a while, you know, I have a guitar right next to me,
Oh,
and
excellent.
once in a while I'll listen to something and I say, "What's that riff?" You know, I'm trying to figure it out, and then I'll pick up the guitar and just see if I can do the riff and figure it out. And it's like, it's pretty cool, you know. Or I'll see like a guitar player playing, like also, let's say, I don't know, like Jim Root from Slipknot. He often does videos where he'll show how he plays certain songs, and then I'll say, "Oh, that looks like a fun riff to play." So I'll pick up the guitar and try and do it, you know. So, but other than that, not really. I would love to sometimes record some old songs that we never really recorded properly. They were all done on these 4 tracks and stuff like that. And today it would be nice to have it more like digital and stuff. So maybe one day I'll do that. But I'm always chasing the next Kickstarter and getting this stuff finished and stuff.
Oh, you're hustling. You got to. So
Yeah.
you're in.
So, you know, you're trying to, you normally work on the stuff that brings you the most money first, and then you see what you can do when you have the time, you know.
Well, maybe someday when you can write the seminal girl band comic that you have in you, you can have an accompanying CD of the songs from the.
Yeah, I could certainly do it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. This is awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. It was nice to be on and to talk to someone, and also talk to someone in English.
Glad I could help with the lessons.
Yeah, to practice a little bit, you know.
But hopefully, I'll see you on the convention circuit again sometime soon.
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky in the Atlantic region. It may happen for us sooner than for others. So who knows?
Yeah, so I'm kind of hoping on that too. It's certainly changed things a lot in the area, but it seems like things open up when it makes sense for them to open up. I know some people might disagree with me, but as far as numbers go, I think the people in charge of this area have been doing a really good job of you know, holding things in when they need to be held in. So
Yeah, for sure.
when it's right, hopefully it'll happen. We'll be out there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right. Have a good
All
one.
right.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
And there it is, my interview with Gisèle Lagacé. I hope you enjoyed that. I thoroughly did as well. In fact, I've been enjoying these interview portions of the episode, or the show rather, so much that I'm kind of wondering if maybe it should just be the show. I mean, maybe I'll leave it up to you guys to decide, but do you prefer my interview segments? And if so, would you prefer I had maybe a bi-weekly show where every second week was a new interview instead of sort of the character histories in between? I'll leave it up to you to decide. I'll put it out on social media and see what you think. Although I do really like it, and I think I could easily transition to that if that's something I think the masses want. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to this week's episode. I will be back next week with another one of our normal episodes. This time we'll be dealing with Agatha Harkness, the kind of resident evil witch of the Marvel Universe, who is heavily rumored to be Catherine Hahn's character in WandaVision. Whether that is the truth or not is heavily debated, but we will wait to see. But anyway, because she is in the public eye right now, I figured why not do a little episode on her. So tune in next week to learn about the graphic history of Agatha Harkness. In the meantime, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next week.